Anton the professional. Hey.
Hi.
Opportunity meets preparation. That's how you taught us. How did your journey as a resident director begin? Did you ever expect that you would become such a prolific resident director?
Oh, why, thank you. You know what? I do bang on about opportunity and meets preparation. And again, I sort of, want to add to that the idea of being front-footed and putting yourself and your brand and your work first. And taking, not waiting for opportunities to come to you, but making them happen. And I know I said that to you last time, was that, you've got to approach people and say, this is me, this is my work, take a chance on me. And yes. And musical theatre lives in my bones.
Yeah.
And, and I think that is the thing, is like I say to all of our students, it's all very well, to bemoan the fact that, where is the work? Is somebody going to call me? But no. 3 things. Are you writing your own work? Are you taking your stuff out there? Secondly, are you keeping yourself show fit? By the time students leave LAMTA, they are at the top of their game. Certainly from a fitness at their age, fitness not only in dancing, but fitness in terms of learning words, fitness in terms of their acting skills, their singing voices. And if they don't maintain that, they are then quickly taken over by the next year group of people who are that. And so it's really, really important to keep yourself show fit, and then go to dance classes, keep your singing classes with your coaches, going. And obviously it's not every day, but it's once a week, because hopefully you are doing castings and auditions and all of those things that you're meant to do when you leave. But the key is that when an opportunity does come, are you ready for it? And, I often find that people aren't. And, that is why one of the things that we do at LAMTA, which all of the students hate me for, is a thing called a rep folder, because the rep folder symbolizes exactly what I'm talking about. The fact that an opportunity comes and you don't have to think twice about it. You go to your rep folder, and in your rep folder sits the song that is going to be the key to your success in getting into this show. And the reason it's the key to your success is because you spent hours as a student researching it, going through it with your vocal coach to the point that it is a song that you can nail and you can get from A to B, which is to get the callback material without blinking an eye, without preparation, without research, because you've done it. And so that is why I say that's preparation. If you're going, oh, what am I going to sing for tomorrow's audition? And you in the deep, dark web trying to find something that is appropriate, it's too late. And it's the same with your dance classes. If you've maintained them and a certain tap audition comes around and you've been doing your tap, then that's called preparation. So it is absolutely key, and that's why I bang on about it and am hated for certain things and certain demands at LAMTA. But, again, nothing that we do there is to make people feel like, oh, you're not working hard enough. There is always a method behind the madness.
I just have to tell you this story. That is so deep in my soul, you saying that. And had this jaw problem this year. And I phoned Amy Campbell, and I one morning I woke up and I had a nightmare. I was like, they're having cabaret auditions. My jaw is stiff. I haven't sung. I'm not ready. If it comes this week, I'll never get it. And she was like, relax, I'll see you tomorrow. But I'm like, Anton said I need to be ready at any moment.
Yeah, no, it is.
But and I sang through all the songs, and I'm like, what would I sing for the audition, Amy? We're not prepped for this.
It's so anxiety causing. I mean, us performers are renowned for having our theatre dreams. And my one recurring one is knowing that I have to be on stage for Cats in 5 minutes and I haven't got my cat face on. That's my worst, because I know it takes me at least 40 minutes to put my cat face on.
And
you've just been given the 5-minute call and you look in the mirror and you don't have your cat face on. It is disastrous. I mean, I can wake myself up with that. No, it's horrendous. But we all have those theatre dreams.
So anyways, that comes from you saying always be prepared for when opportunity comes knocking. Okay, cool. Tell me about this resident director thing.
So again, that is a perfect example of opportunity and preparation. I was in a production of Rent. I was playing Gordon and I was understudying Roger. And one afternoon, Hazel Feltman, the producer, called me and said, look, we have a problem with our resident director. They're not available anymore. I see you have a degree in drama from Stellenbosch. Is it something that you would feel comfortable doing? And it sort of really took me by surprise, because I was like, oh my word, I have, at this point, I haven't seen myself on that side of the curtain. But it is also something that I very quickly realized, the longevity of a performer. I mean, look, in musical theatre, I've seen 80-year-olds play beautiful work, in the world of musical theatre, and be appropriate, because for me, that's always one of the key things about musical theatre is choose somebody who's right for the role. Don't powder dye someone's head, make them old, make them walk with a crumpled over to be old. No, cast an old person.
Yeah.
And as a result, I think there are many, many shapes, sizes, ages in musical theatre, which is what I love about it. But at that point, I had sort of gone, all right, now I'm moving into another sort of, field of the profession, which is, I think, a really exciting thing to do, because there does come a time where I look at some of the older actors and I'm like, gosh, how does that person, carry on? How do they feed themselves? How do they pay for their rental and stuff like that at an age where the jobs are not flying at them, And although musicals are always great because they usually run for longer, they may take you overseas. You could be doing Phantom for 2.5 years, which many of our older professionals actually did.
Yeah.
And it was a great income for them. The time comes where the work is not so easy to find.
Yeah.
And as a result, I think it's really important for you to keep looking at a 5-year plan where you go, where do I want to see myself in 5 years? Where do I want to see myself maybe in 10 years? And I always knew that the time would come where I would transition from a performer into a director or a resident director, or something more creative behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then I also knew that the time would come where we would create a business like LAMTA and sort of give back, because it's all wonderful to perform in a in a show and live out of a suitcase and see these wonderful parts of the world, but there's a time that you want to settle down.
Yeah.
And by that stage, you need to be able to go, okay, this is the current plan, and it's 9 times out of 10 going to be more than just being a performer. So that was the first time that somebody made me go, oh, okay, hold on. You can now move in a different direction. It's been, 10 years that you've been a performer living out of a suitcase. I didn't stop performing. In fact, I still performed a lot of my work as a performer in the following 10 years, but I was now able to decide whether it's going to be a performer on a show or a resident director. And again, opportunities came flying at me after that, because then I started residenting on shows where I was working with incredible people, Anthony Rapp on Rent, all of the creatives that came over from Phantom, all of the creatives on Priscilla, Chicago. I mean, we're talking about incredible talents. And then I was learning about the industry and learning about my profession and about musical theatre from these incredible people sitting next to them as a resident director. And, I can say again, as the blinkers came off in the world of a performer touring internationally, more blinkers kept falling off when you started to work with people from all around the world, from behind a desk as a director, and going, okay, that's the way that it's done. And keeping your finger on the pulse of what is required from performers, is required from shows, what audiences are wanting, and being able to feed that back then later into LAMTA and into our students was a really, really powerful thing to be able to do. And again, I was ready. I think the time had come where I had spent so much time as a performer and everything that I had studied and learned to be able to say, yes, I can be a resident director, even though I was kind of cramping myself, going, is this something that I can do?
Yeah.
You've got to just jump in the deep end.
Say yes.
Take the risk.
Figure it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that was where it all started.
Well, you obviously did a good job.
I like to think so. Again, it's also all about the way in which you relate to people. And I'm a firm believer of, yes, there is your craft and there's your skill and there's your talent, but what is your EQ?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get on with people who are sometimes not easy to get on with? How do you express how you truly feel without upsetting a producer, but that this is what a director wants? And how do what's the delicate balance between those things? And how do you relate to people on a personal level and professionally as well. You sort of like, okay, you're here from America. I'm going to show you around Cape Town. I'm going to show you around how things work in South Africa. They're going to be very different to how the arts are over there. And how are you going to get the best out of a South African performer?
Yeah.
How can I make you feel at home and feel like you can deliver your best work here? What problems can I help you solve? Are you comfortable in your hotel? It's all of that kind of stuff that is not just about the profession. It's really about, the bigger picture and just being a good human and relating to people from a human perspective.
Yeah. Awesome. Right. You've been one of the busiest people in the industry. How have you kept your professional and personal life in a state of harmony? And does one ever take over the other?
Gosh, you know what? I think I've had it really, really lucky. I obviously met my partner, Dwayne, on Cats. And, and we've been together for, I don't know, I'm going to make a thumb suck now, about 22 years or something. And the amazing thing about our relationship is that he was always very different to me with the skill set that he has. And as a result, we were extremely lucky in that we ended up being on the same shows a lot. And, him using his skill set and me using my skill set. I think if we had the same skill set, there would have been a serious problem.
Yeah.
But, the fates had it that we ended up working so much together and seeing so much of the world together that our kind of personal life and our professional life has always just blended together.
Yeah.
And I sort of think that one of the best things for a relationship is the ability to discover new things together and to be able to say, oh, wow, you and I are enjoying this incredible moment in our relationship and our professional lives where we are seeing things that you would only ever see if you were sort of, took the time out to go and have a holiday and really explore something. Now it's being forced upon you on a day-to-day basis. You're seeing new things. You're in parts of the world. It is so, it's so exciting to be able to explore that with a partner, but also somebody who you work with.
Yeah.
And I think like at the end of the day, we've also had to make sure that we separate things. I mean, you guys have seen me and Dwayne as your lecturers and directors, and there's certainly moments where you're like, geez, how do those two people live together because they get and kill each other? But then to be able to go, it's 5:00, we're going home now, and despite what may have happened that day from a business perspective, your relationship kicks in.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to make that transition. Because if you don't, it's never going to work. And, occasionally we would say, look, I think us gymming together now is really, really living each other's pockets. So you got to find the times to do the things that you want to do, So for Dwayne, he might go and, I don't know, he doesn't do the ice swimming thing, but, he has his kind of gymming routine, and my hot yoga is the thing that I do, and that's where we do our separate stuff. And I think just to find times to be your own creative and to be your own, live in your own space and have your own time is important. But in our lives, we pretty much do live in each other's pockets. We watch theatre together. The time that we do have to ourselves, we spend with our families, his family or my family together. And then, other than that, it's LAMTA 24/7 or it's working on a show or whatever. But, the nice thing is that now that LAMTA's gone into its 6th year, we always sort of said one of us will be able to go and do our creative thing, So this year he's gone and choreographed The Sound of Music and Mamma Mia, and I've sort of stuck behind to look after LAMTA, and we will continue to alternate that.
Yeah.
So it is a hard thing, and I find it kind of tough for young, theatre people, because relationships in the theatre often sort of require you to meet somebody else in the theatre because your times are so different to a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
You're constantly touring or you're away, and that's really, really hard for maintaining consistent relationships. And that's why, the things that go on tour are just like crazy because you're like, oh my word, guys, everyone's looking for companionship, and right now, the menu is only the menu you have in front of you. And so it goes, it's wild. But also, you're young, you're discovering things, you're discovering who you are, what you want. So it's also a lovely time. It's a good time, but But it is hard, and I feel like I look at contemporaries of mine who now have husbands and children, and I kind of go, wow, you're going off to, Nigeria to do a play for, 3 months, and you're leaving your kids behind and your husband behind, and they need to understand, because this is your job, and not only your job, one of the things you're the most passionate about in your life.
Yeah.
So for them to deny you that is hard. So it is tough. It really is tough. And I feel like you need a strong relationship that's able to say, look, I'm going off now to Beijing, and you're staying in South Africa and you're working on that show. And that happened a lot with Dwayne and I. It was those late night, Zoom calls, or, it's wake up really, really early if you want to actually see that person's face, But that's just the way that it goes. So it's about finding the balance and the healthy balance, and always being compassionate, and compromise is a massive word.
Yeah.
Yeah, compromising.
Yeah, well, you and Dwayne have a beautiful relationship. I mean, you say, oh, you kill each other, but you 99% of the time you work so well together.
Well, we are a bit of a yin and yang, and I think that's also key in a relationship. Is we're very, very different. I'm usually bad cop, he's good cop. Everyone's like, oh, Dwayne, and Anton's the one that's crapping on everybody. But
then when Dwayne craps on you,
then
you run. Because then it's serious.
No, absolutely. No, definitely. But it is great. It works really, really well.
Yeah.
Dwayne's also got a puzzle schedule brain on him. You would know this, being a sort of choreographer, and when he was a dance captain and a swing, everyone loves him because he walks in and he knows the choreo instantly, and he can clean it up, and he can jump into anyone's role and dance. So it works really well with schedules at LAMTA, because he knows how to balance everything so that it all works. It would be a mess if I touched that. Yeah. The whole college would be in the same class.
We'd all be in 2 to 3, like, what do we have now? Where's the guest?
Oh no, it's yeah.
You've been one of the people who have taken a very active interest and action in the development of young creatives and empowering them with skills. When did you decide to look to the future and help nurture and create creatives?
Oh, nice question. I think it's really important to, at some stage in your life, give back. Yeah. And we had such a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for many years, a good 20, 25 years, where we, as I said, you were learning with our finger on the pulse of what it is that people wanted in the arts, be it from the expectation in auditions or the expectations of the kind of work we want to see on stage. And there did come a time, as I said, where we wanted to settle down.
Yeah.
And, we had long conversations with Peter Turin about the idea of opening up a school. And this came off the back of the fact that there were 5 international shows happening, of which all of them had South Africans in them. And we couldn't cast any more shows in South Africa because everyone in our business was overseas.
That's crazy.
And there were 5 incredibly big shows. I think it was like Chicago, Phantom, Cats, Matilda. I'm not sure what the 5th one was. I can't think right now. But I remember us trying to put together a cast of The Sound of Music and going, there's no one. And this prompted Peter to say, look, we have to start generating new talent. We need to start getting more talent into the industry. What about, this thing that you and Dwayne have been speaking about a school? Is it something that you're serious about? And at that stage, I think I was still doing Magaldi in Evita, and Dwayne was sort of, I think he was in Singing in the Rain. So our careers were very much still pumping. But we loved this idea, and people always laugh at me because I say we wanted a dog and a pot plant. And, and so settling down in Cape Town was a key thing for us. And who wouldn't want to settle down in Cape Town? Also because the industry was thriving at that stage. And I remember that there was a time after Cats where some of our colleagues decided to go to London and make their futures there. And some of us decided to come home and make our futures here because we felt like we could play major roles that would tour internationally anyway. And that is what ended up happening. It was really, really cool. But the notion of South African theatre being prosperous and one being able to work was really inviting. And who wouldn't want to live here and do what you love? We really have it great in many, many ways. Anyway, so one day Peter phoned and said, can the two of you come? And he pulled out this, unrolled this poster that he had, which was an entire kind of floor plan of a new theatre academy above the theatre. And we were like, are you kidding? I mean, who would not want to study in a place like this in Camps Bay, above the heads of not only the biggest producer in Cape Town, but people who are professionally working on a beautiful stage, one of my favorite stages in the country. I'm like, this is a no-brainer. Yeah. And I mean, only once you've done your ballet classes at 8:30 in Studio One watching dolphins, you realize what a privilege it is to be there. And that's just the infrastructure. Then you're talking about the kind of lecturers that have committed to teaching there, and you go, guys, like, what part of train here do you not understand, or would you not agree to? But but again, this was now the moment about giving back. And it takes me again back to my drama/Latin teacher at school and going, it is so possible to make such an impact on a youngster that allows them to take what they have, their talent, their passion, and just crack that nut open and send them into the world. And it was always our plan to have a small theatre academy which could take maximum of 60 people, focus on giving them the best training so that we could release these 20 people into the world that were going to work because it was quality. And know that instead of having, 15 LAMTAs around the country that you have to fill up and they end up all being a student number, this was now a small group of people who very personally, individual bespoke training where you focus on what that person needs, getting rid of habits that person has, bad habits, and really, really tuning in to who they are. And that requires a very hands-on approach and a lot more care. And I think that, to get that as a LAMTA student is a real privilege. And yes, it does mean that, we're not going to become big businessmen in the big business of creating, institutions that make us a lot of money. But that's not the point. The point is to make LAMTA a brand that anybody goes, if you are associated with LAMTA, you're going to deal with great talent. And, 5 years ago, we were like, is this going to work? Have we made the right decision? Is our course working? And 5 years later, you look at any musical now that's on stage, you can see at least 7 LAMTA students. There are students that are, playing the lead in Maynardville, that are on cruise liners, that are shooting international movies. And you're just like, well, yeah, it's working. Is it going to make us rich? No, but that's not the point. It's we have a lot of little projects in the pipeline. And again, I think, this is what I say to all our students is the business of show business is something you have to focus on. You have to be an entrepreneur. You have to go, how can I use my love for this industry to make me money, not only in the obvious ways, but in smaller ways as well. And, and that's why we're sticklers for, look, you're great in the spotlight, but what else can you do? Oh, actually, you're a brilliant lighting designer. So marry those things, or you're a fantastic businesswoman. So, maybe producing is your thing, or you're a publicist, but stay in the world of the arts, because that's what drives you. And it's that thing of, if you love what you do as work, it's never work. And I think that's the thing that Dwayne and I bust our butts. I mean, we work so hard, but it never feels like work. It's because we love what we do. And then also what happens is you start to look at your students as literally your children. So your opportunities, you want them to have opportunities. You want them to be successful. You want to pour everything that you have into them in order for them to be successful. So it just becomes this big family, and you push yourself harder to make that person better. So it's it's a marriage of a lot of things, and also maintaining your other little businesses or things that you have. So MTW, which is kind of the precursor to LAMTA. It was a really important platform to encourage young people to get into the arts and to go at school level. I'm really passionate about it, so let's take you to the next step, which will hopefully send you into like a LAMTA.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I also know that, like, being at I must tell you quickly before I forget, someone last night at the Flirter Cup said, did you study at LAMTA? I said, yeah, why? They said, you're oozing LAMTA. And I was like, that is the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Thank you.
You're oozing
You're
LAMTA.
oozing LAMTA. I was like, okay, cool.
Oh, well, you know what? Ooze.
And I know what that looks like, which is,
Yeah.
But anyways, also working at LAMTA, it feels like kind of the walls are filled with like the knowledge of the industry because of the faculty there. So you also work so hard because you're given so much knowledge, you're given so you're given so much by everyone, you and Dwayne. So you work so hard when you're there to meet that expectation. So yeah, I mean, it's a magical place to study.
It is a magical place. And I also, I'm a firm believer in once the graduates have graduated, they must go into the world to garner more experience like I did.
Yeah.
And then to bring it back. Do you know what I'm saying? I think there's this wonderful, I'm not a huge fan of graduates teaching because I feel like they've got the skills from the place that they've learnt, their skills, and then they need to go out into the world like you have, for example, and you've now worked on shows, you've worked as a choreographer, and now for you to come back into the LAMTA space is incredible because you're not bringing your training into LAMTA, you're bringing your worldly experience of the performing arts and your experience in that theatre and your experience working with that person and your experience as a choreographer back into LAMTA. And that starts to make sense. And that is why our slogan is, bringing talent to our industry and the industry to our talent.
Exactly.
And that's why it works because, the people... There's something about a student who looks at a lecture and goes, yeah, okay, you're telling me this, but when last did you do it? That is like a typical, student thing to say.
Yeah.
But at LAMTA, they can't because I did it last night.
Yeah.
And come and look, and then they come and they're like, oh my word, my lecture is so good. Like, yeah, of course.
You watch our lectures and shows and we're like, we will listen to anything you tell us.
Precisely. So it does make life really hard because the best way to run a school is to have a lecturer that arrives there and is there 24/7 and is not going to come to your office and say, there's an opportunity for me to do this and do that. So I'm going to not teach for the next 2 weeks. And I'm like, well, who is, but I want them to go because what they're going to bring back is even richer than what they had before. So it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, amazing. All right. What advice do you have for budding creative souls in our creative industry?
You know what? I mean, I sound like a stuck record, but again, it is to trust and believe in yourself and your abilities to take your work further. I think creatives are scared. They're really, really scared to firstly think out of the box. And, I've recently kind of attended a lot of shows and looked at the list of shows that are on, and I've looked at, what people and audiences regard as, the in theatre, and I kind of feel like it's safe.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage creatives to keep thinking beyond that by pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
And then to take what they feel is who they are as a creative and push that agenda and not be afraid to go to produce and say, give me a space, or to create a space or to find a space. And there's some really, really exciting work happening in small little places and little, rooms in buildings and things that are exciting. And I want those people to trust themselves, to say, look, I'm bigger than my budget is currently saying it is, and yes, it's easy to throw millions at a production and say, look how good this is. But it's sometimes the little gems that on a shoestring budget are creating such memorable, moving work that I want to encourage people to do that, to get into their little yellow Beetle and to drive to the closest festival and to put on their work.
Yeah.
And I feel like, often people feel intimidated to approach big producers and there's no space for that. If you don't own your work and you don't believe in yourself and you don't trust yourself, it's a problem. And, again, at LAMTA, we start to nurture that by putting on a production called Playground, where people can take and do whatever they want to start to nurture their creativity as performers and as writers, as composers, as musical directors, as choreographers, and to say, actually, I'm pretty good at this, or actually, I'm enjoying this process, and to take that into the world. And my other thing would be to say to start writing your own stories, because, there's only so much Eurocentric kind of stuff that we can put on over and over again. But where are our stories? Where are our South African stories? What can we put on that's going to bring everyone into the theatre, not just the same kind of people over and over?
Exactly.
And it's a hard thing because as South Africans, we have so many diverse cultures that you go, how do we get all these cultures into one theatre, watching something that they're all moved by? And that starts with educating youngsters, from taking kids to theatre from a really early age, from all over the country, and getting them excited about theatre and writing their own kind of theatre. And so, I mean, it's something we could talk about for absolute ages, but there's a lot that needs to shift. But I think the bottom line for me is in trusting yourself and believing in yourself that what you've written has value and that someone wants to hear your story.
Yeah.
And taking that into the world.
Yeah. I also think that asking the older generation for advice and for guidance on like any budding creative is so important. Like, these people are more accessible than you think, and they're more likely to help, because at the end of the day, people might be intimidated to ask you, but hearing that you did that not so long ago, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're so willing to help anyone who's in the
Completely.
same place.
I find it fascinating that people, I mean, it's not arrogant, I guess, because I think as a youngster, you're probably full of like drive and like, I can do this. But like the resources that are out there to help you make your product better by just inviting someone to a final dress and saying, help me, note me, what makes this good, what makes it bad, from people who know, I mean, it's a no-brainer, and people who will be there to help you.
Exactly.
I did it. I wasn't scared to do that. I welcomed notes, and that's an old thing, actors hate notes, but actually good actors love notes. And it's the pros that are at the top of their game that can't wait for you to come back as a resident director after the show and say, just consider this, do that. That didn't work so well. Those are the guys that wanted. So it is interesting. And I feel like also what should be key on our agenda is producing work that young people want to see, because they are our future generation of theatre audiences. And so again, brings me back to Spring Awakening. We want young people in the theatre because if they love what they see, they're going to keep coming.
Exactly.
And then Netflix is not going to be something that we're all competing with as theatricals.
Yeah, this is true. Anyways, thank you, Anton. This was incredible to hear from you, and I can't wait for everyone to hear all of this brilliant advice and all the gems you've given. So thank you so much for your time.
Well, I love this platform. I think it's such an exciting project that you've created. And of course you have, because you're a LAMTA student.
Of course, I'm oozing LAMTA. All right, thank you so much. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Does say.
Thanks, Anton.